You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Everest Coaching Systems, Bax Max, Chiro Thin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 118 of Chiro Hustle. I'm your co-host Luke. Here's your host Jim.
So today we had a chance to interview Dr. Skip Wyss, and we discussed many things, but at the core of this conversation is kids in chiropractic. Stay tuned. So Dr. Skip, tell us your chiropractic story. What really influenced you to become a chiropractor?
Okay, so my chiropractic story is a little bit in depth for a lot of people. So what happened is my junior year of high school, I basically tore my knee out. I blew it out playing kickball in weightlifting class, right? That's where you get all the fat guys to run around a little bit before they lift some weights and we get a little cardio in, right? So I got a ball thrown at my legs and I jumped the ball. I was safe, of course, because I'm nimble at 230. And I hyperextended my right knee and tore my ACL, PCL, and LCL all in one hyperextension. And now, mind you, I'd been getting adjusted my entire life since I was 2 years old. I've been going to a chiro because my wonderful mother worked for a chiropractor, and we just went because we were kids, right? I never really knew why I was there. I just knew I was there, okay? And I enjoyed getting adjusted. So tear my knee up, and at that point, I've been getting more and more involved with Dr. John Stowe and Dr. John Jordan in my area where I grew up in Black River Falls, Wisconsin. And as I'm looking at my knee and it's swelling up to the size of a grapefruit, I see this little lady come walking across the gym with this giant toolbox, and she's our school nurse. She's like 5'1". She's got this huge lean that she's carrying a 5-gallon pail of water, and she's coming over and she gets across the gym and she checks the pulse in my foot, and she can't get a pulse in my foot. So she's like, I'm going to call an ambulance because I'm losing your pulse. Something's wrong with your knee. I'm like, oh yeah, something's wrong with my knee. You can't see the kneecap anymore. So I get put on a gurney, wheeled through the entire school to go to the ER. Okay. And I get to the doc in the box up at the ER, and he looks at my knee, right? And the first thing he does is he grabs my knee, the one that's swollen. You can't even see the kneecap, Jim. Like, it's the size of a softball, and the other side looks perfectly normal. So clinically, from a chiropractic perspective, just observational skills shows you one side's really bad, but there's no need to touch it. So he grabs it, and I'm like, oh, you gotta be kidding. It hurts so bad. He's like, we're going to shoot some x-rays. Something's wrong with your knee. I'm like, oh, no crap, man. So shoot some x-rays. He comes back in, sticks me in an immobilizer, and says, we don't really know if it's tore or not. You're going to see your general practitioner in about a week and a half. That's as soon as we can get you in. And I looked at my dad and I said, okay, so we get out, we get in the car, and my dad looks at me and goes, what do you want to do now? And I said, I always get shook up at this part. I'm like, take me to the chiropractor. Take me to go see John. I need to get checked. And he's like, all right, let's go. So we head up there. And the reason why I get emotional is that's kind of the pivotal point in my life, because I go there, and that's when I realized that my chiro was more than just a chiropractor. It was more than just this guy that thumped my bones and made me feel good, and we made small talk. Like, I realized he was a legit stinking doctor. Like, he was legit. And at that point, that's all I thought was a doctor, was an MD and then a chiro. So I didn't really put it together, right? So in my mind, we are the doctor now. Like, we are the doctor. Everybody else gets behind us as chiropractors, right? So he's checking my knee, and he's like, Skip, there's so much swelling in here. I can't do anything with this tonight. You're going to come back in the morning. He adjusts me. I go home, ice the crap out of it. Come back the next morning. I'm laying face down on the table, and John's checking my knee, and he's like, hey, there's a blood blister on the backside of your knee. And I said, okay. And he's like, knees just don't bleed, Skip. So, especially on the inside. He goes, something's definitely tore. He goes, I can see the pooling, a small amount of blood here. This is tore. And I said, okay, do you know what? And he's like, nope, not sure. He goes, the tests are showing me that we've got a couple ligaments that are tore. I'm going to call down. And mind you, this happened on a Thursday. Friday, I'm in seeing John that morning. I have an appointment to see the orthopedist on Tuesday. That's how quickly he works. That's how quickly we work in this office now too. I can make 2 phone calls and have a patient in to see a specialist within hours. That's the clout chiropractors have if we just know how to stick and use it, right? So I go in, they discover under an MRI that I got a torn PCL, ACL, and LCL. Let's fast forward 6 weeks. They actually decide not to do surgery. They want to put me in pre-surgery rehab first and see how I rehab. 6 weeks into rehab, I'm rehabbing incredibly well, but my pain's not completely going away in my knee. So they go in and do a scope and clean up all the scar tissue. 2 weeks after that, 2 weeks after the scope, I'm squatting just over 500 pounds, about 2.5 weeks after the scope. And my therapist looks at me and says, hey, you're rehabbing faster than anybody I've ever seen. Why do you think this is? And I looked at him and I said, I've been getting adjusted like 3 times a week since I injured my knee. I've been going every day I have therapy with you, I get adjusted before I come here. And he looks at me, I kid you not, Jim and Luke, and he goes, you honestly think that the chiropractic adjustment is actually controlling the way your knee heals? And I knew at that point I wanted to be a chiropractor. Because it's that lack of certainty that other professions have that we have. We have the certainty that we know that the body is designed to heal itself. And we know that the program that it runs specifically is what heals us. It's the God-given program to heal exactly how we're supposed to, and the brain runs that exact program, right? I knew at that point, I was like, this whole thing, this chiropractic thing is for real. And my mentors at that time approached me about being a chiropractor literally like 2 days before he asked me that question. And I didn't know how smart I had to be a chiropractor. They looked at me and said, Skip, you're smart. You're very smart. I said, yeah, but I'm not a valedictorian. He's like, you don't have to be a valedictorian to be a good chiropractor, Skip. To be an amazing chiropractor, you don't have to be a valedictorian of your high school. He's like, you're smart. You're nice. You're funny. People like you. You will be great at what you do. And I was like, all right. So I went to Palmer College for my first homecoming when I was 18. Chills went up my spine, and I knew this is exactly where I needed to be. So I started there in 2004. And that's led me down the road that I'm on right now. And I'll tell you what turned me on to chiropractic at that point after I was at school was I started seeing all these miracles happen. I started reading green books. I started diving into actually what made chiropractors amazing. And it was the ability to understand how the body's designed to heal. And it was the ability to understand how everything progresses forward and heals exactly how it's supposed to in a very, very specific program if we just allow the body the ability to communicate to the brain. And that's stinking amazing, man. My hair just stood up on my arms because that's phenomenal. There's no other profession in the world that thinks in that realm all the time. And that's amazing to me. So what's funny, though, is that now I'm a pediatric chiro, which I never thought I would be. I really didn't, man. I wanted to take care of athletes in college. And I wanted to move back to Green Bay, Wisconsin and take care of the Packers, which was kind of a ridiculous pipe dream at the time, but that's what I wanted to do. So I went down this road of sports injuries and sports-related chiropractic and adjusting ankles and knees and wrists. And like, I'm really good at adjusting this stuff, which floors a lot of my patients because I'm a pediatric guy. So they don't expect me to be able to check their shoulders and their wrists and help them with everything else besides axial skeleton, right? So I'm sitting in OB Peds class and I'm playing Game Boy one day. This because in chiropractic school, we have like one pediatric class. It's called obstetrics and chiropractic. It's OB Peds. It's what most chiropractic schools have for training. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I'm not going to see kids and I'm just going to play Game Boy. So I play Game Boy every day with 4 of my friends. We linked our DSs and played Mario Kart every day. This is what we did. And then something happened and my wife ended up pregnant. Like we were married in July of 6th try, 2007. And August, Julie ended up pregnant. And then I get into clinic and my staff doctor looks at me and says, Skip, you realize your kids are going to be, your daughter's going to be here in like 6 months, right? And I said, yeah. She says, do you understand how to take care of kids at all? I said, well, I did well in OBP. She's like, yeah, I know how you understand. You know how to take a test, but you actually get how to take care of these kids. And I said, no. And she goes, you have no choice anymore to not understand how to take care of a child, because the most important child in your life is going to be born in 6 months. I said, all right, I'm in. So Dr. Brown, when I was in outpatient clinic, loaded me with kids. But the thing is like the kids that were coming in were not your normal children that we see. I don't even see normal pediatric kids anymore. I see the neurosensory stuff, and we see a lot of kids on the spectrum. But at that time, I was getting inundated with kids with ADD, ADHD, and getting inundated with kids with autism. Guys, this was back in 2008 when we knew autism was on the rise, but we weren't catching it yet. Like we were seeing it, and I was seeing kids with toe walking. I was seeing with all these different signs and starting to understand why these kids needed care. But then once my daughter was actually born, and I actually adjusted my first newborn, the first newborn I ever adjusted was my daughter. And she was 9 hours old. Why I waited that long was because I was uncertain as to what I was doing. And that is the damn truth. I was so uncertain, but yet I was going to adjust my newborn at 9 hours. And I remember the adjustment so specific because everybody's in the room and I'm like, I can't adjust Peyton. What am I going to do here? And everybody finally leaves. And Julie's like, all right, you're going to check her spine now, right? I'm like, all right, I'll do it. And she had a very large right atlas listing. And that birth and stuff was pretty traumatic on my wife. And that's a different story. But I specifically remember she was ASRA. So she was stuck to the right, subluxated right with an anterior right rotation. So she was always looking left nonstop. I just thought she wanted to look at me. That's really what I thought. I thought I was that handsome as a father that she couldn't take her eyes off her dad. Yet her mom was right next to her. No, it's because she couldn't turn her head to the right because the food's on the other side of the bed. Okay, that's my wife, right? So I adjust her, and within seconds, she looks at my wife. Just bang. And that's when I knew that we have the power to change a child immediately. So that's what set me down the path of taking care of children. And then what also changed my mind was the certainty that doctors have to take care of children and understand the clarity that they need to have. So they have the confidence and clarity to actually be able to recommend to parents what their children need without wavering from it. Chiropractors we are so quick to stand up when there's an issue, but we are very, very quick to sit down at the same time. And I know you've noticed this, where we get fired up quickly. When we're amongst ourselves, we're rip roaring, man. Like the fire's burning and we're jumping around. But when it comes to the general public and there's an issue at hand, we will stand up for a split second. And then the minute we get questioned, the second we get questioned, we sit down. Because for some reason, we don't see ourselves as the level that we need to be at. And what that comes from is uncertainty. And not seeing the miracles that everybody talks about in practice. Excuse me. I apologize, Jim. I really do.
That's fine.
Front desk castles, right?
Mm-hmm.
What happens then is that we lack the confidence and the clarity to actually rebuttal to anything that we get called to the floor on. And that's not okay with me anymore. It's just not okay. Because when we start having governments and states and countries starting taking away our rights to take care of children and their right to have access to chiropractic care more than anything, it's their right to see a chiropractor. And the fact that we can't defend what we're doing or we don't have the wherewithal to stand up and get pushed back on, I'm not okay with that anymore. Because there's too many kids that need our care. There's too many young babies that need our care, that need that essential form of life put back in so we can get that communication perfect. They deserve that. They deserve it. Because we weren't meant to have nerve interference. In utero, We don't have nerve interference at 20 days in utero. At 20 days after conception, that notochord's coming together. And it's running in a very, very precise program from that point forward. And then the birth process is usually where we receive our first subluxation. And if it's not corrected at that point, it sets the body up for malfunction the rest of our life. And if you look at any research across the board and any SOT research with Dr. Marty Rosen, or you're looking at Desjardins research, they know in SOT, which I love about SOT, is that they see a direct linear impact from 0 to 2. And if we don't get them before 2, they're already starting to set up neurological habit. And by 7, that neurological habit's ingrained. So every chiro should have a nonstop burning in their gut to get their hands on kids. Because we know if we can get them early, if we can take care of them early, clear that nervous system regularly and check them and make sure they're on top of their game at all point, how do we not have a healthier generation going forward? Because it's not okay with me that 1 in 33 kids are now diagnosed with autism. Yet I've got a kid in here right now that was completely nonverbal in June of last year, 9-year-old, nonverbal, non-communicative. Sweetest boy ever. If you ran into him right now in this office, if he came through that door in 5 minutes, you wouldn't even know he was autistic. Verbal, communicates, tells jokes, spells, just wrote an entire card for his mom on Mother's Day telling her how amazing she is. And I'm starting to shake because those are the things that if we just get the body back to communicating, it heals and puts itself right back online. So why doesn't that drive every one of us? I'm not quite sure. That's what pushes me to be where I am.
It's a big why. And yeah. I know that sharing so passionately with people is something that you embrace, and you think that, you know, more people need to know about this pediatric style of chiropractic. And you did mention about rights being taken away. I kind of want to touch on that a little bit about how we can actually make something positive based on what's happening in Australia. And I know that this isn't like our format for the interview, but I wanted to touch on that a little bit. And then I further wanted to bridge into what makes you unique. And you started a podcast and a show based on kids in chiropractic. So first of all, let's just jump right into what we can do to help with the situation, and specifically over in Australia.
I think helping with that situation is plain and simple that we need to actually have more confidence and clarity into what we're doing and why we're seeing kids for what we're seeing them for. And that comes back to having a clinical backup in your practice to know that you can go to the toe-to-toe with anyone and say, these are my findings as to what's going on with the neurology of this child. And this is how we're going to go about changing it. And these are the objective measures we take to measure the nervous system. So go ahead, Jim.
No, I'm just thinking, you know, it's not going to, like you're saying, 1 in 33, it's not going to get any better before it gets worse.
Yep.
And, you know, to be, you know, having some governing arms say you shouldn't take care of kids or babies is, I think it's a travesty when it comes to just the right of choice for like anybody to have consent. I think we're going against like human law.
Yeah.
So I think when we have a governing arm say that you can't do something and mandate that you can't do something, it's without like bridging any type of a law breaking. I think that's a huge mandate, and it's a disservice to the people that need that care.
I think you're 100% correct, and it's taking away the rights on both sides, and it's a full-on human rights issue. But where Australia is coming from is the safety of the HVLA adjustment on a child, and same thing in Canada, where they're taking away the ability to take care of children as well, and taking away the ability to talk about subluxation period on the west side of Canada. All of that is the ability of us to stand up and push forward and show what's right and what's wrong with the system. But we have to take it from a stance of we turn things on. So we need to come at it with positivity and not negativity. And that's a big thing because chiros pride themselves on turning on systems in the body all the time. That's what makes us amazing is we turn on communication. We get communication crystal clear again. Okay. We can't go about it in a deductive model. So we can't point out the negativity at all times. We need to point out the positivity of what we do, how it improves life, how it pushes life forward, how it improves the neurology of these children and how it improves their function. And I believe that the medical community and the people that write laws, if they see it in the positive light that we always try to project, I think things will change. But they always look at the negativity of it, of the safety of it. Chiropractic is extremely safe. It's extremely safe when performed correctly. And we all know this. It's performed correctly. And HVLA adjustments, can we learn a different technique to adjust a child and not involve a high velocity, low amplitude thrust? Absolutely. There's tons of them out there. So why are we not learning those to make sure that people can't rebuttal against us because of certain situations? It's kind of like having one tool in your box. When you know in the chiropractic world, the more tools you have, the more people you can take care of, the more children you take care of. So have things at the ready to move forward, but take it as in a positive light. Don't take it in a deductive light as in being negative about it all the time. And I know I just talked about what frustrates me, but bringing upon that negative light really destroys what we're trying to do. Because instead of trying to tackle, like we'll go about it and try to tackle things from, let's say, if we try to tackle it negatively and rip on medicine, that ain't going to work for us. We need to highlight all of our major accomplishments and put them in front of people's faces. To me, that's what increases clarity as to what we do.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Everest Coaching Systems, Bax Max, Chiro Thin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
Yeah, and I think what you're touching on is these things that are happening abroad and up in Canada. It's dogmatic ignorance that's controlled by a government regulatory agency that might not need their kids to get checked by a chiropractor because they don't know why it's so important. But if they realize the importance of it, once they have an autistic kid or once they have a developmental issue with their kid, they're going to shame themselves for saying, we didn't approve of this for people that need the necessity of chiropractic with their babies and children.
Exactly. Again, you're taking a model that's looking at things deductively and mechanistically instead of vitalistically improving the situation, improving the health, improving healing. Instead of how do we shut one system off to try to make one system work versus how do we turn one system on to make everything work like it's supposed to.
And that's why I really support the 2-doctor system, one to keep you healthy and one to save you from dying. And
exactly.
I think that the more that we become aware of that is the model that we're in, then we don't say one or the other. It's I use this for this purpose when this purpose is necessary, but I go to this for this purpose when this purpose is necessary. So there is a distinction between the professions, and there is a usability, and there's a need in the marketplace for both professions. So when people are coming at it from that perspective, us against them, that's a very losing proposition. But when you say, well, we all have room at the table here, and we all have valid strategy for helping people, nobody wants to go against the Hippocratic Oath, do they? So no. We don't do no harm when we come into the arena of health and healing. And I think that when we come to legislation involved with health and healing, we have to be crystal clear to make sure we're not going against the Hippocratic Oath when it comes to care providing. And I think that that's something of a staunch stance that we have to make, to say, you guys are taking the whole possibility of helping people away because of your governmental standard, which might not be the best, because you're not doing this in the best reckoning of the people that need this care.
Right. And I think I got to leave it just as that, because you answered that perfectly. Like, that's exactly it. You know, being able to use each other as an adjunct and understanding which side does what and working together.
So uniqueness, let's talk about the project that you're working on right now.
Oh yeah. You mean the Prime Pediatric Program?
Yep.
Yeah, that's an awesome program. So that program is designed to increase certainty, clarity, and confidence in the chiropractic doctor in practice. And I always try to say this to doctors. A lot of docs will say, I just want more freedom. I want more time. I want more money, like all that kind of stuff, right? I get the wants and the needs. But what if you had freedom within your practice because you're seeing more children, because you're seeing more patients? And it's about being extremely efficient in understanding what you're doing. And a lot of docs that I talk to, especially that take care of kids, they always tell me, I like taking care of children, but I just don't quite have the confidence in my skills to take care of them. So that's where this program is designed to help doctors become even better at what they do. I think we're all very good at what we do. I think some of us are great. I think some of us are extraordinary. It depends on how long you've been in practice and how hard you've worked to increase your education, right? But this program is designed to help the doc get better at what he does chiropractically and then drive him to a much more just fun, stinking practice to be in. I was asked by Dr. Melissa Longo the other day what I define as success. And it used to be a numbers value. Like I'd be like, X, Y, Z and this many patients and all that kind of stuff. No, man, from what I've realized now over 10 years, it's my ability to be myself within my practice and taking care of the patients that want to be taken care of by us here. That's what success is.
You know what they call that, Skip? They call that social positioning. You position yourself into the social status that you are aspiring to become, and now you're there, now you're thriving, and now you're building on top of that, which you built a foundation, and now you're figuring out how you can create more of a megaphone for the message. And I think that that's where people, like we're in the inner circle with Ed, we start to scale. We start to learn what our abilities are, and then we start to dive into them.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And knowing that I have something that can improve chiropractors worldwide and just make them more efficient and more just amazingly better in practice is what makes me very, very happy. So how do I get my hands on more and more kids? That's my question all the time, is like, how do I help more and more kids? I have to teach more chiros how to take care of more kids and do it effectively and properly, because I think a lot of chiros, a lot of guys that want to take care of kids just don't have that certainty to take care of them. So they limit themselves mind-wise because they don't have the confidence in what they're doing. And to me, it comes down to three things: exams, adjusting techniques, and then actual clearly communicating to the parent why things are going on the way they are, and how do we reestablish that communication to make sure that the body functions like it's supposed to. Function is key.
So
go ahead, Luke.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
You're good, boss. I saw you lean forward, so.
Well, I just wanted to find out, with all this cool stuff you're doing, it's really amazing. And I was just curious if you had any favorite motivational quotes or mantras that keep you fired up every day.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is where a lot of docs will say to me, like, how do you stay so fired up? Like, how do you stay so burning? Well, here's one of the things. I see kids every day. So, and I say this to a lot of docs when I talk to them. I'm like, if you're feeling burnt out or falling apart, just flip the script and start seeing some kids. Because you can't help but stay energized with kids around you all day. They drain you a little bit, but remember, they go home after 5 minutes. They don't stay around. Your kids don't stay around all day, But the best quote I have that I love is it's basically this: the secret of genius is to carry the spirit of the child into old age and never lose the enthusiasm for what you're doing. Because I look at my son, like my son and my daughter are one of the most precious gifts in my life. And my kid wakes up every day with a smile on his face yet, because he's 8. As soon as he turns 11 and 12, that's all going to change. Okay. But it's the early childhood years that we tend to forget as adults, that viewing life as a gift instead of as a detriment to just pass on every day to just get to somewhere else. It's, it's cliche to tell somebody to enjoy the journey, but really to never lose the enthusiasm for the journey is key. And to never lose the enthusiasm to always get to take care of kids. Because to me, if I don't lose the enthusiasm for my practice, I never actually come to work any day. I come to work and have fun every day. And I come to work to take care of kids, to help them express life, help them heal, get them to where they belong, get their structure back. All the function is key in this office, right? But it's having that environment to always stay excited about. And do I have off days? Yeah, I have off days. We all have off days. I believe it's really unhuman to say every day in my life is perfect, because every day in my life has flaws and every day in my life has a setback. It's just, how do I deal with that setback and move forward? Where can I take that negatively and make it positive? And it's understanding who I am in that space and understanding who I am here in this practice that has allowed me to have that. So like when I get the gift of actually talking to students, which is like one of my favorite things. I've been talking to students since I was in chiropractic school. Like I used to recruit for Palmer College of Chiropractic as a student. It's what I did. And I could get anybody to sign up for chiropractic. It was not hard, especially from a student's perspective. Every student wants to change a life. Just how do you want to change it? That's the biggest question, right? It's the same thing with your patients. They want their lives to change. How are you going to change it? How are you going to help their kids change their lives? How are you going to improve their health? I'm going to adjust them, and I'm going to do a damn good job of it. And I'm going to check them off and change the frequency in their neurology. It's what I'm going to do. It's what I'm going to do. Okay, cool. Let's do it. Because I know I'm going to change your life. And the funny thing is as chiros, like we get this crazy thing that like patients think that we're some magical healers. Like we hear this all the time. Like, oh my God, you healed me. Just fix it. No. Pump the brakes, boss. You're healing it. You're doing it. I'm clearing up the communication. I know it sounds simple, and it's really not that simple. But to you, that's all it has to be. Is I'm moving it, I'm getting it clear, and I'm letting you do your job. And when I have an adult that comes in and looks at me, it's the funniest thing when they're like, do you actually see adults? I'm like, yes, I see adults. I know that like 70% of the people in this office are children. And I know it feels like a daycare in here sometimes. And I thought I shut that off. I'm sorry, Jim. I know that it feels like a daycare in here. I get it. But yes, I see adults. I do. I specialize in women and then very, very young men. That's really what I like to say when I joke around with them, kids and pregnant moms. But the funnest thing is when I get a dad that comes in and I get him, he's under care. And then like 2 weeks into care, he's like, man, I'm just happier. I'm like, yeah, I know. I can clearly see it in how you're walking. One is he may or may not be out of pain. I don't know what he's coming in for. But the other thing is that the internal stress of his body is so low now because his nervous system is actually firing like it's supposed to and talking like it's supposed to and communicating. Cortisol's dropped, acetylcholine's up, man, everybody's feeling good. It's the stress in life that kills us. And if we can better manage stress inside our body, we're going to heal and be happy. And I think that's why my kid views it all the time, because he's adjusted. He's checked all the time. But he always draws smiley faces on everything. Like everything. Brecken, like my kid is obsessed. My son Brecken is obsessed with nature. My daughter is obsessed with playing her violin, and like she's very, very artistic. It's how her head works. She's a beautiful human being. My son is completely opposite, but he draws smiley faces on stinking everything, and it's the coolest thing because he has a very distinct way he draws smiley faces. And I want every patient when they leave this office to feel like I just put that smiley face on their back. And every kid.
So let's talk about your personal life just a little bit. What kind of books are you in the middle of reading right now? What kind of podcasts do you listen to? And what are some of your hobbies?
Okay, so this is going to sound like nails on a chalkboard to a lot of people. I'm not a real big reader. I'm not. In fact, I'm in the process of trying to get a bunch of green books put on audio so I can listen to them. Reading is one of those things that I don't excel at, and I truthfully do not enjoy. But
Me either.
But you get me to listen to things, and I'm all day. I will listen. I don't listen to a lot of music. I love music, but I listen to a lot of talk radio. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I like improving myself as much as I can from others people's advances. I don't like learning from people's mistakes. I like learning from what they've done positively to push themselves forward. So do I follow the hustle? Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Do I like listening to myself talk? Sometimes.
I don't.
What's that?
I just listened to the Decade and Day with Luke today, and I mean, I articulate things really well. I communicate at a high level, but just hearing my own voice, I'm not into it.
And it's the content that gets dropped that I like to go back and re-listen to. Our podcast I listen to. I actually re-listen to our podcast. I like listening to my colleague, Dr. Christina Stitcher, a lot because she brings in a lot of clinical value. And an amazing family practice value to it. But as far as reading is concerned, the books that I do read are books on how I can better get my message out to my chiropractic brothers and sisters. And how can I keep pushing myself forward? So I'll read Grant Cardone stuff. My wife and I just read the book about did you read the book from the Harmon brothers? You guys read that book yet? About turning poop to gold?
No.
It's about the guys that marketed the Squatty Potty. It's amazing. It's actually a really, really amazing book. And it's like most people, my wife read it in like 2 hours. It took me like 2 weeks. Just goes to show how fast I am at reading. But those books, I like reading books by Garrett Gunderson. I like reading books that help me help myself and better what I do, whether it's financially or business. As far as chiropractic books go, I love listening and reading the green books. I really do. I just would rather listen to them than read them. Because let's be honest, some of BJ's works are very hard to get into. They are heavy. And you need to spend like a day on like 2 pages. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
That's what I like to push at. I wish I could tell you exactly what books I specifically stand out in my mind. But a lot of it is financial and marketing stuff. I like to listen and I like to play in that space.
So what are some websites and online resources you could give people if they wanted to find out more about you and what you're doing?
Okay, so the Prime Pediatric Program.com, that's kind of a rundown of what our program is all about and why we're doing what we're doing and how we're helping doctors basically create extraordinary pediatric practices. The Prime Pediatric Podcast, obviously staying in that same mold, that helps people that helps docs clinically. That podcast is specifically set up to help chiropractors. That's what it's there for. Do I have patients that listen to it? Yeah, I get a kick out of it. Like when they come in and like, hey, I listened to your last podcast, and I look, I'm like, did you understand any of it? I got some of it. I got it, but I just wanted to listen to what you had to say. I'm like, that's awesome. I love it. Those resources right there are the best 2 resources to understand why we do what we do and why it's working the way it is. And I want the confidence back within the profession like we have. Like the thing is that chiropractors are always confident when they're taking care of adults. Like they'll stand on solid ground. The research supports exactly what we do when it comes to low back pain. We all know this. It's all that the research is out there. But the nice thing is the ICPA is providing a lot of PBRNs and a lot of a lot of clinical modules and things like that to help increase our research in the pediatric realm. But my question is, from my perspective, is how hard are we going to push? And when we have push back, how hard are we going to push back forward to keep moving forward and progressing with kids? Because in the future, there is no other form of healthcare that will help children more than chiropractic. None whatsoever. None. Every chiro, I hope, is at least comfortable seeing children and understands that they don't have to see them all the time, but at some point they're going to have no choice. So let's make sure that our clinical skills and our ability to articulate and get across exactly what we're supposed to do is always right there. And make sure that we're at the top of our game. I don't like being at the bottom of our game. I don't like that. because then I feel very, very uncertain in myself. And if I'm uncertain in myself, people aren't going to believe what I have to say. And that's the truth.
Well, we are coming up on the tail end of this episode, but we do have one final question for you. Where do you see the chiropractic profession in the next 20 years?
Two scenarios. One, we won't exist because instead of embracing each other, we have a tendency to eat our own young. And the minute we see somebody doing better than us, we try to put them down, which cannot happen anymore, like whatsoever. Or literally where I actually see us is completely taking over healthcare as it stands and being the absolute number one go-to doctor in the public and having people in authority running and setting healthcare laws in this country. More of us need to, one, push forward and be confident, but two, not be willing to settle for mediocre anymore. I'm done with mediocre. Mediocre doesn't work for me at all. Like, period. End of discussion.
You know, it just takes one doctor to make all the change in the world.
I know. Damn it, I want to be that. I'm going to be that guy. I'm going to push it hard because I just can't see my kids growing up in a world without chiropractic. Hell no.
It just takes one doctor to make that declaration and do it.
Yeah, well, that's me. I'm going to do it.
Well, the degree is what sets you apart from us. And that's the part where it gives you that validation to be a voice in the public arena and not to be stymied and to keep on pushing forward and connecting the right people to make the right decisions, because honestly, the future depends on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's always what gets me is, this is the other side that drives me hard, is in our profession, we always have doctors. We always have people coming into our profession because they had their lives changed. And very few still come into the profession because they've been adjusted their whole life. And it's just normal to them. To them, that is what health is. My kids, they don't know anything else but chiropractic care and the natural ability of the body to heal itself. That's what they know. So my goal in the future too is, as we grow, as our profession keeps growing, that we're constantly pulling now from our crop, from our children that we've raised, that constantly keep coming into the profession because that's normal to them. And that's how we create normalcy. Commonality is not okay.
All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up this episode of Chiro Hustle. Skip, thanks for coming on the show with us today.
You're very welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for having me. This was quite an honor.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for sharing the message. And I know a lot of people's lives will be touched because we brought you on. And I know a lot of people are going to reach out to you and see how that they can link arms with you and help you in your cause. And then vice versa, you'll help them in their cause. So Luke and I signing off here from Grand Junction. Love and appreciate you. And we'll catch you on the next one, okay?
Thanks, guys.
All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.